I just want to get started and welcome everybody for being on here. I'm very excited to have you on here. And we have two goals with this. And it's going to be super short. Glad you could come. I know we have some people that are in the States and we have some people that are abroad. And that's really exciting for me that we have the power to do this through technology. So our two goals for today, we're going to educate you and we're going to empower you. We're going to educate you on some of the vehicles financially that a lot of us have not been taught, that a lot of us need to be able to understand and use to our advantages in different ways, especially as basketball players, where you may be living check to check, you may be living season to season, and you need ways to be able to grow, protect your money in different ways besides just letting it sit in the bank. So you're going to be educated on what those vehicles look like. And then you're also going to be empowered to be able to use those vehicles to your advantage and to your leverage. Quick story about me. My name is Tim Springer. I've been a basketball skills trainer for over 20 years. I've been working with pros for at least 15 and have seen a lot. You know, my job is, yes, mostly on the court training, but at a lot of times it becomes advice. It becomes sometimes a counselor, sometimes a this, sometimes a that. And so when I saw that and I saw a lot of the financial struggles going on with basketball players, I said, man, I got to find a way to help them. And so first I went and helped myself, fortified myself, because most of us trainers live workout to workout, just like a player may live season to season. And so really important for me to fortify myself. Once I found that, surrounded myself with a team of others who understand what they're doing. And luckily in the basketball world as well, which is a very beautiful thing, we teamed up to be able to now send this to a place where we're getting to help you. And we know there may be many different players watching this. You may have the player who's making millions overseas or NBA, and you need a better way to protect all this money. Or maybe you're making six figures and you're doing pretty good, but you'd like a better way to grow your money. Or maybe you're just starting out, money's kind of the issue, and you need to find a way to evolve this so that A, your money can outlast your career and you can have the best chance at a career. And so with that being said, we're going to show you how all of this kind of fits into place and show you some other things that not just basketball players, but people in general need to pay attention to, like how making sure your money outgrows the taxes. Taxes are going to go up. We know this, right? So how is our money going to be able to do that? Are we going to earn more, work more? As we get older, especially as basketball players, that gets tougher. Same goes with inflation. We know inflation is going to go up. Okay, well, how's our money going to last by that? And then if we are already at a space where we're investing, how can we make sure we keep as much and lose as little of this money as possible? Okay, so that's the whole goal of today. I really encourage you to stay to the end. We're going to offer you a special personal meeting to kind of see, once you see how this information looks from an umbrella view, you're going to be able to look at it from a personal view, and we'll schedule that going forward. Before that, though, I would love to bring in my partner, Natalie. Let Natalie tell her story, why she's a part of this, because she also, just because I'm going to give her a little, because she's very humble and won't tell you the whole thing, but Natalie's actually one of us. Former pro player, played at Notre Dame, drafted to the WNBA, gold medalist with Team USA, awesome, awesome stuff, a great pro career, has now moved more into the financial strategist field. But I don't want to say it all, but I had to at least get that out because I know Natalie's super humble, and that's not going to be the one to brag about herself in general. So Nat, go ahead, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. It's been awesome, obviously, working with him, and I'm excited for kind of the relationship that we get to create and help pro players all just like ourselves. So thank you guys for hopping on. And I just want to quickly share my story. I want to be short and sweet today with you guys. But my first memory about financial decisions, honestly, was my rookie year in the WNBA. They told me they advertised this big 23% match. They went on and on about it. And they never taught me about what it was. So at the age of 22, I said no. And I just hoarded my money my whole career, basically, in the bank account. And that was for the first 5 years, truly. And I just didn't know any better. And I liked having it. There was more money than I had ever been used to, even as a women's player, right? And so about 5 years ago, I was still playing basketball at the time overseas when it was my twin brother that basically said, Nat, hop on a call. I know you're not doing anything with your finances. And, I couldn't deny that, right? So I hopped on, but honestly, I was so impressed straight away, became a client. I was educated and felt empowered to move forward with my finances and make a decision, right? I knew the rules of basketball because I played for years and years all my life, but when it came to money, it felt like I was clueless, right? I was blessed with private school education my entire career, but no one ever had taught me about some of those things as we transitioned from college all the way to pro, right? And so, it's funny because at the end of the day, how can you really win at a game if you don't know the rules? And that's when, what we're going to kind of go through a little bit today and tonight for some of you who might be overseas. And I knew it's just if I didn't know some of this stuff, I knew some of my people didn't know some of this stuff. And so I'm excited to kind of share with you a little bit some of what we refer to as the rules of money. But tell you what, Tim, I'll go ahead and throw it back to you at the moment. Let's go ahead and get started.
No family left behind, which will make more sense in a minute here. But what I really want you to understand as we start to go into this, I need you to get some basic knowledge under your belt so you know what's going on and how this is going to work. So when that comes back and shows you potential numbers of what could be possible for you, it really has some context to it. Okay. So first and foremost, I do want to do this. Okay. Just so you know that this is not Tim and Nat's magical financial adventure ride and some Ponzi scheme or some crazy things. There's legitimacy behind this, okay? We are directly within World Financial Group, which is under Transamerica. So a lot of you probably heard of it, huge company here in America. Transamerica is under IGON, billions upon billions of dollars overseas, actually, and the global economy depends on it. So as you can see, again, this is not some wild idea that me and Nat had and put together for pros. This is actually structured. It is regulated in a way that this is going to be safe, and everything that we say is legitimate. I always find that to be important. One of the biggest things we talk about is this. When you look at this, just looking at it from the diagram now, this is pretty much the relationship of most pro players. It's them, their money, and probably a bank. Now, I know some people are in real estate. Some people may have this or that going on for them, but the majority were here. And that's good. Hopefully players are actually saving something in the bank, right? But at the same time, what happens? That money sits during the season because you don't need it much. All your expenses are paid for. You go home. You might need to pay for a trainer. You're going to pay for your rent. You're going to pay for whatever. And then all that money in the bank is gone. And it didn't, whatever you put in, you put 10K in, that's what you had to put out, right? We all know that old adage of put your money in the bank and it grows it's not true anymore. Well, here's the interesting thing is what are the banks doing with this money? Obviously, we know they'll loan it back to us for a huge percentage rate. I think it's about 9% right now. But the other thing they're doing, right, they're going to give us less than 1. They're getting 6 to 12 by taking that money to third-party company, life insurance companies. Life insurance companies. Now, the bank is not going to pass away. They did not need a death benefit, right? So what is this? Well, what the bank understands is what we need to understand today coming out of this meeting is that we can skip the bank and go straight to the life insurance companies, get the same kind of returns they're getting with minimal loss, which we'll get into here in a second. But now we're in a privilege of power. Now our savings are growing and we do have access to it and things of that nature. So you are now, and it's not wrong that you put some of your money in the bank. We're not telling you to put all your eggs in one basket, but what if a good portion is sitting in one of these life insurance policies, growing money and everything of that nature, right? Because really, would you rather put your money in the bank or would you rather put the money where the bank puts their money? Of course, we want to put it where the bank puts their money. Okay, now, here's where we're going to kind of get into this. 3 basic things I want you to understand here, okay? There's vehicles, right? As you can see at the top here, we got the bank like we just talked about. We have 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs. If you ever heard of that, that's in there. And the next red one, we got brokerage, stocks, mutual funds, XYZs. In the blue, you got private pension plans like indexed annuities. And then you also have IULs, which are indexed universal life insurance policies. Now, take this mindset, right? Put these glasses on. There's actually, I was just listening to something with Tony Robbins. This man has been actually interviewing the most wealthiest investors in all over the world, and he's getting the commonalities amongst all of them in these books he's been putting out. And I was listening to an interview, and he talked about this. He said, and they asked him, what's the most common thing all these investors are saying? They're saying, well, number 1, have some diversity in what you invest in. And 2, biggest gain, smallest loss. Biggest gain, smallest loss. And so obviously a lot of the things that we know, things like stocks and like that are perfect. They can give you some gains, but they can have some losses. So with that in mind, that we need gains, as much gains as possible, the minimal amount of loss as possible, and then as well, we can avoid taxes. Unfortunately, a lot of these vehicles that you're seeing up here, they're going to get taxed. So someone like who's banking on a 401k to be there and be their retirement fund, they're going to get taxed. They're going to get taxed, and it's not going to be the retirement they think it is. So how can we avoid those taxes? And then as well, once we have those in place, what's the security behind that? The stock market can make a lot of people rich, but the stock market can make people lose a lot of money. So anyways, not to get in the weeds, I just want you to look at this, right? Based on what I just told you with Tony Robbins, right? As much gain, little amount of loss, and then let's avoid taxes where we can. And then also let's have liquidity to it. So let's look at this. Obviously, you see X's mean that vehicle doesn't have it. Green means that this vehicle does. If you look, just start straight out on the right side, the only one that really targets all of them is the IUL. But let me get into why. Okay, the growth potential is there. We're indexed to the stock market, and Nat's going to get a little deeper into that in a second. That is something that you absolutely want to understand. I can tell you when they introduced it to me, I did not understand it. I wish I had known it 20 years ago. It would have made a whole much more sense to me. So with that being said, you can see there's no growth in the bank. You can get growth in other places too, okay? Well, what about the gains? What about not losing? Well, the bank, yeah, if I put in 10K, I get out 10K. I can lose money in an IRA 401k. I can lose money in stocks. Obviously, with the annuity being indexed to, there's a level of where we can have a floor and not lose the money as well, same as the IUL. Now, that's all good. We have gains. We have minimal loss, right? Even for someone who may have other investments, not that may be more high risk, like a stock, we're minimizing that risk. Because even if it's a bad year in the stock market and you have these stocks, maybe this here having the no loss here in your IUL, that's another vehicle for you. Now it helps mitigate that a little bit. Now, here's the things that we need to think about too that don't get talked about that much, right? So liquidity. In these 401ks, IRAs, there's rules of when you can touch your money. Right. So as you see on the number 4, there's not many that, yeah, I could pull my money out of the stock market, but usually we're pulling the money out. It's not always a good thing either. Right. Okay. Enhanced legacy. This can be handed off. A 401k, the company owns your 401k, not you. Right. You got to be able to pass these things on because, but most ball players end up family members at some point, moms, dads, husbands, wives. You want to make sure this isn't just money that you have. This is money your family has. Okay. Now, won't get too deep into this, but we know a lot of times, obviously, none of these are really going to help you if something catastrophic were to happen, something like a cancer, another severe medical injury. So there's that there. But then here we go with what matters. Taxes. Everybody's going to pay them one way or another. Most people don't understand them well enough. And I'll tell you this, the affluent are proactive towards taxes. The affluent are proactive towards taxes. 98% of us are reactive to taxes. Oh, I made all this money. Okay, I got to pay Uncle Sam this at the end of the year. Affluent people go, what is the tax code? How do I leverage this? And how do I make sure I minimize my taxes, right? And so with as you can see, really depends on the structure with some of these, but the only one you know for sure is the Index Universal Life Insurance, an IUL. Okay. And that's going to make a lot of sense here in a second as well. And then probate avoidance, excuse me. So basically that has a lot to do with whatever you have as far as assets. If they're not set up properly, it's going to go through probate, meaning a judge is going to decide where your money goes to, what assets go where. Whereas we can pass IULs off to family members and give them without any interference of a judge of anything of that nature. Okay. So in essence, when you look at this, there's only one, what we call indirect investment, and that would be the IULs. And the reason we call it indirect is this. Investments in themselves by the tax code are taxed. And they are susceptible to market volatility, right? Like the stock market going down. When it's indexed to a life insurance with a life insurance policy, it grows tax-free and you can access it tax-free. And I'm going to just say that again because that one's got to stick home. It's one thing to earn it, but it's another thing if Uncle Sam goes and takes it, right? Life insurance is the only way you can grow and access your money tax-free, as you can see. And that's just how it is with these vehicles. Now, here's what I want to do. That's the principles that you need to understand and the lens that you need going into this. Nat, I'm gonna give it back to Nat. Nat's gonna run some examples of what it would look like for what potential players were. Again, she was a former player. I've dealt with a lot of players. We understand where your earnings are at. We have an idea of about where your savings is at and about where you've probably been proactive. And everybody's different, and we respect that. But just watch these numbers and watch how she does this. And I think the biggest thing to understand is this: even if, for example, doesn't fit you to the T, the beauty in these can all be structured based on what your resources are now and what your needs are. Like, let's say you are a rookie getting a lower contract. You could only afford to be able to do X, Y, Z. That's fine, because you know in 3 years when you make it to Euro Cup or whatever your situation is, and the money's a little bigger, it can be structured in ways that can help you, whatever the situation is. So I'm gonna pass it to Nat without talking too much. I want her to show you these numbers. Be excited about these numbers, because I'll tell you, I was blown away when I first saw this, and it almost seemed like it wasn't possible, but it 100% is. So
Thanks, Tim. I just want to quickly touch on to simplify in your brains a little bit visually before I just dive right into the numbers, you guys. I talked about earlier, right? Knowing the rules of money. I just want to show you sort of these three rules when it comes to money, about kind of just the fundamentals. First and foremost, without going into too deep, we talk about the rule of 72. Think of that as just the compound interest rule, understanding at the end of the day that we must, and our money has to be able to get higher rates of return in order for us to be able to build wealth. We're not gonna be able to save our way to wealth in a bank when 22-year-old Nat, that was the plan, right? And so sometimes when we're receiving money overseas, it can be either tax-free, depending on kind of where you're playing, and it's a lot more money than a lot of us are used to. And on top of that, it's it's money where we don't have to as a lot of expenses for us, so we can put a lot of it away. And so you can see here, even just getting a higher rate of return, the importance of it is because you're able to get those kind of compounding returns later on in life when you're starting a little bit early. And sometimes a little bit can go a long way. So most advisors, they're focused on this accumulation phase. What's the rate of return, right? If I've lost money, how much do I need to put back in it in order to continue to grow? And that's where most advisors are. But the one thing that we want to focus on as well is, yes, making sure you're still getting higher rates of return, but on top of that, protecting your money. What if you could get high rates of return, market-like returns, as Tim talked about, but never lose your money? So you're never having to interrupt that compounding process with the rule 72 and never have to make up those losses. And so you can see we talk about how money grows. Most of every account that's out there is you can find them in one of these. Look at these more as rows, not necessarily as columns, and I'll kind of walk you through it. You can see how money grows. Fixed, right? We're not going to be growing a ton of money. That's our CD, savings accounts, bonds, things like that. Variable, though, is anything directly invested in the stock market. So you can see a lot of these are directly invested in the stock market. And when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it can be really bad. And it's hard to be able to continue to safely get those high rates of return if you're always having to make up those losses. And so that's where index, exactly what Tim was referring to, is to be able to grow your money safely without losing it, right? And so it's kind of a marriage of the first two, the safety, but also still getting market-like returns. And how money gets taxed, though, right? So we all probably agree on this call, taxes are going to have to go up in the future, right? So what if we could pay our taxes today at the lowest rates they've been in decades, so it grows tax-free, you can access your money tax-free, and that's tax advantaged. Tax now, sometimes it's taxed up to 3 times on every dollar, so you're kind of kneecapping your growth. You never really can get those compound returns that we talked about with the rule of 72. Tax later, though, you're not going to pay your taxes today. We're going to have, here's a little match. Here's a little tax deduction. But when it gets really, really big, your money, then we're going to take our cut, right? Then we're going to take taxes out. If we all agree taxes are going to go up in the future, does it make sense to wait to pay taxes later when they're going to be higher, right? And so that's where you can kind of see here where we find most people are. They're somewhere over here in the tax now, tax later, fixed variable buckets. And you can just see, even just thinking through the lens of maybe if you don't have anything set up, or just some of the things you've heard out there, right? So your brokerage accounts, CDs, things like that, they're in the fixed, right? Your 401k, IRA, real estate, even brokerage accounts, mutual funds, even a Roth IRA, that's all in the variable market. So the conversation I'm about to have with you and what we've been chatting about is this over here, this combination of indexed growth and also tax advantaged. I just want to kind of visually so you can kind of see that. before I just dive in here. So easy, but here we are, because most people are unfamiliar with what you can actually use life insurance for in your living years. So I've come together with a couple, we came up with a couple examples of where people are at. And as Tim mentioned, you guys, think of this through the lens of maybe your situation or a potentially a goal of what you can. So you can see here, this is just a male at 26, obviously very healthy. And the insurance company basically says, look at that as a risk. Okay, with that person who wants to save maybe $500 a month, put about $500 away a month, and they're going to say, okay, $800,000 is what we're willing to give that person, right? And so sometimes you can, how I would best fund these, either starting monthly, but also maybe also if you have bonuses for tournaments end of season or Christmas tournaments or something like that, bonuses, scoring records even, honestly, you can dump a lump sum of this money in as well. And so the funding of this is very, very flexible. And so that's kind of where we come in to help you structure it perfectly so that it fits you and your situation. So I know this may not be, just to give you an example, but it may be different, obviously, for you and your situation. So you can see here, if you're just funding this, maybe $500 a month, all the way up to $2,500 a month. And think of that, doesn't have to happen immediately, right? So they're flexible enough where if you can start where you're at, then also build upon it. So the bucket size for this, think of this as a minimum and a maximum. The bucket size for this person would be about $500 a month, all the way up to $2,500 a month. And you can see, think of it, we're only legally allowed to illustrate about 6.28%, but these accounts average anywhere from 6 to 12. So I want you to take a look at net surrender value, cross that out, and think of access. What do you have access to? And so you can see in the first couple of years, you don't have a ton of access, mostly because the insurance company is going to hold on to a little bit of your money because you've only put in maybe, 20, 30,000 the first few years, and they're on the hook for 800,000 if something were to happen. But if you're just continuing to put a little bit away while you're still playing, in the first 5 years, maybe a little bit after 30, you've got almost $100,000 that you have access to continue to build wealth. Because I want you to look at it through the lens of this. When we talk to a lot of our athletes, maybe they're higher net worth earners. Maybe they're making more than a lot compared to, maybe some of our athletes are only making $4 or $5 grand a month. However, they can put away $3 or $4 grand a month because their expenses are so low. And that's kind of where we talk to people about, what if you could put it away, not to be able to use till you're almost 60, like some of the government funded vehicles, but what if you could use it throughout your lifetime to be able to build wealth? Because when you think about it, most people want to be able to go put a down payment on a home or a property or an asset or even a car or something like that, they either go into debt or they're going to wait to have a cash accumulation, then go outright and pay for something. Most of the time, let's be honest, for all our American spending, it's a depreciating asset. So what if you borrowed, say, if you have access to about 100,000 here, if you borrowed maybe 20, 30 grand, for example, the insurance company is going to give you about 20, 30 grand, and you're over here, it's purchased something. However, your money in this account is still earning 6 to 12% interest. And say the insurance company is going to charge you 5% on that 20, 30 grand. However, if you receive 10% that year, credited interest, right, because it's tracking an index, 10 minus 5, your money's still earning 5%, even though you're using it over here to accumulate wealth, right? And so that's where the wealth have been double dipping on their money for generations, and it's just doing so in a smart way. The tax codes that govern these accounts have been around since 1913, right? Which is wild to think about these accounts, right? These accounts have been around for over 30, 40 years. And so that's where I'm talking about here, is being able to use this money throughout your lifetime. But then eventually, if you wanted to, you can turn it into a tax-free retirement income stream. And so say if you stopped funding it at 50, don't have to fund it anymore. There's different ways of funding it. You can, stop funding it after 10, 20 years if you wanted to. This is just an example. But without getting too into the weeds, say if you wanted to start taking money out at age 60, right? Age 60, say you put in almost 650,000 and it's grown to about 2.2 million. And so what if you just lived off of the interest that your account was generating every single year in order to be able to live off that money through retirement, right? And so without getting too much into the weeds, I wanted to show one other for my females on the call, right? And so just to show you an example of, say, and the difference between male and female isn't very significant. This is just want to show you another option. So you can see here, as a female, age 30, for example, and you can see, let's see, somebody putting in 2,000 monthly. And this bucket size would still be 500 to 2,000. But if you're like, okay, I can put away a good amount, like how can I be able to build wealth with that? So putting away 2 grand just for about 15 years, essentially 2 grand a month, you can see you have a lot more access sooner to be able to access your money, to be able to continue to build wealth. And then on top of that, say you only ever put in 360,000 and you just stopped funding the account. Just stopped funding, never put a dime more in. At age 60, you turned 360 almost to 1.2 million, quadrupled your money nearly, right? And then again, it'll still operate the same throughout your lifetime, and then turn it into, if you wanted to, a tax retirement income stream. And so it's like you being a little bit smarter with your finances while you're still playing. And it's not something where you have to continue to take all your money and just every single penny pinch and put it in there, right? Obviously you're having fun, and the lifestyle over there is you can have access to more funds and you want to be able to, but what if you just continuously put a little bit of money aside to be able to continue to build wealth? I just want to quickly share sort of my story, and I'll hand it back to Tim. So for me, I was very grateful, in my 20s, being able to put away 3 grand a month, and I did that consistently, right? I loved what I was doing. Still able to I actually ended up wanting to get my license because I was so excited about this. I wanted to share it with people, honestly. And so I ended up dipping my toe in, got my license a couple weeks that I was home in between seasons, and I wanted to be able to share this information. So that's what I did for my first 2 years. And as fate would have it, ended up tearing my knees up. I didn't have a plan B. Still super reluctant to try this kind of full time. But for me, it was just kind of how I saw it as an opportunity to be able to build something for myself. And so as I was putting away a lot of money, all of a sudden, after that first 18 months while I was rehabbing, I signed a 2-year contract, was about to go back overseas, and I ended up tearing my knee up again. Right. And so I decided to retire at that point. However, I was able to stop saving $300,000 a month and go all the way down to 200. And so that's how you can kind of see the flexibility of these plans to be able to fit into our lifestyle, because we never know what's going to happen to us, whether it be an injury, whether it be, financial troubles with a team, or, a team's imploding like one of my teams did. And so it's a lot of different things that we have to deal with. And so making sure that we're putting money aside to be able to set us up, not only for retirement, but for the interim transitional period from after life after basketball. And so the financial strategy really put me in a better position financially. But what changed my life was the business side of it, and actually having an opportunity to be able to make more money as well. So that was a little bit kind of about my story. But this is Tim's event, so I just want to go ahead and, Tim, feel free to close this out.
I appreciate that. And so here's the deal. That's what we wanted to show you. That was the primary number one thing that we want to show you. We want to educate you and empower you, like we said. We want you to know what's available to you. And if you want to move forward with this, again, there's no commitment. All we're going to give you is another free meeting. But this time it will be just you and Nat, just you and me, or, all three of us may get together and just talk about what exactly does this look like based on your situation. So what would help us right now is, if this is something that you would want to do, just shoot it in the chat. Just put a yes in the chat. And then that way we know to definitely follow up with you. We will follow up with everybody and give people the replays that signed up. But if you know for sure right now, we'd love a yes in the chat. And again, you're not committing to anything. You're not paying for anything. You're going to get a free meeting. Now, me and Nat went back and forth about whether we were going to talk about the other side of this. And the thing that made it important and mandatory for me that we do is this. I've also got to see what I call cycles of players, meaning like I might have helped a player either early in their career all the way to the end, and then a new cycle of player come through, just like it was in high school, right? So I get to see every stage of players in what they're doing. And like I said, you might have the young player who's trying to make it. Man, the money's not good, but if they can just perform in this country, they got a chance, whatever. But man, it would be great to have some extra money to go with it. All the way to the other side, well, I'll even go middle. Players making a lot of money now. Mom and dad need some help. Susie needs some help. Boyfriend needs some help. Girlfriend needs some help. And now you want to do the right thing. So what do? You go dump some of your savings over there, and now you need money, right? I've seen that a bunch of times. And then the one that really scares me the most is that, because I see it happening to too many players without good plans in place, is they don't know how they're going to exit. I have literally seen players leave the profession of basketball and have to work at Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods just to pay some bills. That's disgusting. You've worked this hard to be one of the 1% in the world, and now you're stocking groceries at Walmart, right? And no disrespect to anybody who does that, but you guys have too much going on for yourselves and too much confidence, too much leadership, too much team building that you should be looking at things, especially in this day and age. I mean, look, this computer, these phones, we can do anything we want. We're on a Zoom right now talking in different countries about finances. You know what I mean? So again, me and Nat went back and forth. Should we share this? I have to share this with you. So again, first and foremost, book that personal meeting. It's going to be one of the best things you do. If anything, you're just going to get more education. It's going to be more specific to you. But I'm going to show you something real quick. There are different levels in which the business side that Nat was referring to will go. But Nat will tell you too, like, but she started as what we call referral partner and grew the business. We have other people in this business doing the same, but I just want you to look at this. Even if you don't want to grow a whole business, be in life insurance, whatever, just off referrals alone, just look at this. See, we help a lot of people, excuse me. We do help players. We help players who may want something like what you see in the foundation, or parents who have kids that want the $1 Million Baby Fund. I have one for each of my sons, right? People in retirement. These are people who do have 401ks, IRAs, realizing they're about to lose money, want to roll it over. You have things you can do for the personal banking side, what we told you about having access to all that money. We do that, as well as help businesses. Now, just look at the numbers. And again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds. If this is something you are interested as well, you can just tell us when we go to the personal meeting that you want to hear about this. If not, we won't bother you again with it, but just look at that. And I'm talking about literally sending a text and going, Mom, Dad, cousin, whoever it is, just to go take a look at this. Get on a Zoom with Nat. Get on a Zoom with Tim. And if it works, and then they have to commit, obviously, nothing's for free, then that you can look at that kind of potential earning power. Okay. Obviously, there's other things. If you did decide to go all in with the business, it could make sense to also leverage in yourself some other different things as well. Now, I don't want to get in the weeds with these people either, but these are some of the most successful people in our company. Look at that. Just look at the top. Look at those earnings. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Probably about 90 to 95% of them were either A, started as a part-time referral person, or B, are a former athlete. Look at that type of money. There's a professor at SMU. There's another one, fitness. There's another one. He pushes leads just off his Instagram. Like, this is what's possible with this kind of earnings. Okay. So with that being said, I don't want to get too deep into the business. If anything, I want to educate you, empower you on what you can do with the money you're making now. If when you raise your hand and say, yes, I do want that personal meeting, whether it's now in the chat or we follow up with you, feel free at that time to say, hey, let me know what it looked like to be a referral partner. I started out as one and then seen the gains of it. And I was like, well, it kind of makes sense. And again, okay, I'm not a professional player, but you'd be surprised how many parallels in our lives. Like I said, if I don't have something in place, I'm working workout to workout like you're season to season, right? There's no 401ks for trainers. There's no 401ks for the majority of you as well. And even that told you, even the WNBA 401k is not gonna do the job at the end of the day. So we want to leave you with that. I really hope you take the time. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm skipping out another example. Look, so obviously we've helped pro players leverage IULs to really leverage their money. But understand, we have people overseas right now who are doing exactly what me and Nat are doing, inviting people to a Zoom and getting them educated and getting them empowered. One of them, Leslie, she just became a champion over in London with London Lions while doing this, while inviting people to Zooms, while sharing this information and just keeping life simple. So now, yeah, she's got a paycheck from the London Lions. She's got a paycheck from IULs that people that are, I say IULs, but whatever vehicle we help your friends, your family, whoever set up. So keep all of that in mind. Definitely get with the personal meeting. It's been a pleasure. And I know I speak for everybody on here, Nat and everybody. Thank you. Our mission at the end of the day is to help everybody see the light and what's really possible. Yeah, it's great if we can help service you at the end of the day. But right now, if the best thing that happens is you're empowered from how we educated you, to us, it's the win-win. Everything else takes care of itself. So whether you're watching this live now, or obviously someone will see this on the pre-recording, thank you. I wish you nothing but success in your basketball career, nothing but success in your financial career, and many blessings beyond.